This is Cart Logic. I'm Corey.
I'm Jermaine.
Welcome to another episode of Cart Logic. Today we're going to be talking about an article that was done by News One, and it deals with the touchy subject of domestic terrorism.
AKA the new normal.
The new normal. That is very true. We have to understand that there is more acts of domestic terrorism than there is in international terrorism.
Yes. Say that one more time for the people in the back.
There is. Pay attention. Get off your cell phones, people in the back. There are more domestic in the country acts of terrorism than there are terrorism around the world against the United States. Yes. And out of all the different groups that commit terrorism in the country, the number one perpetrator of domestic terrorism are white males.
Ding, ding, ding.
Are white males. Now, I just need to preface it by saying this, okay? Number one, this is not a bash white people episode.
You're not being racist?
I am not being racist, right? However, this is a facts episode. We are just stating the facts.
And for those of you, sorry to interrupt you, but for those of you who may be wondering where our, you may be air quoting, facts are coming from, we will make sure we post the links to our numerous articles that we address and discuss here on the blogs.
Very true, very true. Now, one thing is to realize, and the reason why, remember, CART is designed to push against racist narratives.
Yes.
Right? It goes to the adage, if you say a lie long enough, it becomes the truth.
Yes.
Right? So in our minds, right, this is why unconscious bias training is so important. Because in our minds, we'd automatically think, if it's terrorists, what is the first group we think about?
So it's Muslim.
We think about Muslims, right?
So, Corey, for all those who may not know that terminology, what is unconscious bias?
Unconscious bias are our mind works best when it's able to file away certain facts or beliefs or images. So when it sees it again, it responds the exact same way, right? So they are the thoughts and feelings that come up when we see or hear certain things, right? So that means if we've been fed some biased thoughts and way of thinking or some cultural norms in this country, then we will automatically think that way.
So give a simple example of that say a student in elementary school could understand.
Sure. So for instance, we have heard since 9/11 over and over again that terrorist equals Muslim.
Okay.
Right? Gangster equals black male. Right? That white equals pure and holy, and black equals evil, dangerous, bad. Right? Those are some easy words that trigger certain thoughts.
So to that I say, but I do know some black people that are gangsters. I do know some Muslims that were terrorists. What's the difference in that and just being prejudiced?
Well, then when you first look at them, you start to stereotype.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And so remember, stereotyping is not what you believe in. It's the first thoughts that come to your mind.
Okay.
So unconscious bias training teaches us that you will have these thoughts. Everybody has these thoughts, right? But unconscious bias means you have to recognize that thought and go deeper than that initial thought to make sure that you're coming to a reasonable and anti-racist conclusion.
So folks, for those of you, as he said, we all have these thoughts, so hope is not lost. Just recognizing you have those thoughts are the first step.
Right. So now, this is what the facts are. And out of the 10 most deadly recent public shootings, all but one of those gunmen was a white male who was born right here in the United States. Right? Other things to understand. Statistics have shown that white American men are a bigger domestic terrorist threat than Muslim foreigners.
Why do you think that is? What's the psyche there? What's going on?
Well, it just goes back to the original thought, right? The original foundation of America. It was built on racism. It was built on oppression. It was built on discrimination. And for centuries, remember, 2019 is the 400th anniversary of the first slaves to come to this country of African descent. Right? So for 400 years, those of European descent were taught to think a certain way. That their culture, that their traditions, that their language is more superior than others.
So how do you even begin, though, to dismantle that thinking and that frame of logic when slavery is something that's just pushed back within society, right? It's something that's allegedly just that dirty little secret that happened and that was it. So you guys should be good now. Slavery, as you said, was 400 years ago. What's the issue?
Well, the issue is, the underlying issue is that that's what intergenerational trauma comes in. But although slavery ended, the restoration of the humanity of Black people was not restored. The quality or the the value of a life of a person of color, especially a Black person, was not restored. And most importantly, although racism ended, oppression did not end. Laws that oppress other groups of people. The Chinese went through it. The Japanese went through it. The Irish went through it. Our indigenous brothers and sisters certainly went through it. All of those things have contributed. So literally, although slavery ended, oppression did not end. Legal oppression did not end. Therefore, until legal oppression ended, we should not have been counting ourselves free. Right? Free is not just physical. It's the ability to pursue your dreams without barriers, especially legal barriers. So here we see that the truth is that we have been investing more money on international terrorism instead of investing the greatest acts of terror, which are actually right here in our country. And we have got to stop being fooled, right? It's important to know our news stations actually are now counting how many times the president lies every week, right? We're like up to 80 something lies a week. Okay. So we have to understand that there are certain groups, there are certain and I'm trying not to seem like I'm partisan or that I'm trying to white bash people, but the truth is this, okay? Fox News is not a news station. It's a propaganda station, okay? When this article came out about white supremacy being the number one creator of domestic terrorism, right? You start hearing a news anchor saying that white supremacy is a hoax, right? A blatant lie.
Right.
And millions of people are watching this and being fed like it's true. So we have got to start thinking differently. We have got to stop taking people's word for it. and actually search for the facts. When people say something as if it's fact, we need to start asking ourselves and asking them, what data did you get that from? What truth did you get that from? Because right now we are just blind sheep who are being led astray.
So to bring it back to this topic of white domestic terrorism, what are our action steps?
Well, our action steps are, number one, we need to make sure that we push against the narrative that our greatest threat are Muslims. It is not true. Absolutely not true. Muslims are the most peaceful people on this earth. And we need to make sure that we stand with them in solidarity when these things begin to happen, or these thoughts begin to continue to spread or reemerge. But also we have to recognize that what's allowing these white supremacists, these domestic terrorists, to create so much harm are these gun laws. If you want to help stop domestic terrorism, we need to support gun laws. We've got to stop thinking about ourselves. Well, I have a right to these guns. You may have a right to these guns, but it doesn't make it right because it's putting other human beings at risk of losing their lives. So you're saying that your gun is more important than another human being. We need to check ourselves because you might be a racist. This is Cart Logic. Thank you for another episode. Please join us again soon.